You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about how everyone wants something for nothing. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
Last we left Shepard, they had just arrived on the Citadel. It's a brand new experience from Mass Effect 1 and 2 with a lot to explore. We get some new crew members, overhear some interesting conversations, and have yet another unproductive meeting with the Council. Basically, no one wants to help Earth until their own borders are secure. At least they decide to uphold or restore our Spectre status, I guess. And to top it all off, Shepard is dealing with some creepy-ass dreams.
Yeah, this is interesting for our format because typically we would have like check-ins and BS beforehand, but we have no guest and there are no check-ins really. Like there sort of are as we explore what we can of the Citadel, but we can't even see all of the Citadel yet. So.
Right. This is why I suggested that once we finish with the Citadel, we also do the combat mission that we're not doing an episode for. It's just kind of, it's there in the list to help you and I know what sequence of events to take.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I suggested we do that. So it gives us an opportunity to explore the Normandy so we can do our check-ins kind of in the middle of the episode instead of at the top of the episode. But
for sure. And also it'll allow us to explore the combat mission, which is the closest thing we'll get to the multiplayer this time around, as it's a multiplayer mission essentially, just without the multiplayer. But it's what the multiplayer was based on, which we'll talk about a little. But we won't be able to play because nobody really plays it anymore. At least that's my experience on PC. I'd imagine it's the same for Xbox.
I haven't tried. I'll find out. I'll do some reconnaissance.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So we have kind of a lot of content when I'm looking at the list, but really it kind of goes fast. So it's going to be like boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
When we get to the Citadel, we're greeted in the docking bay by Bailey, who was promoted. Lots of promotions going around for everyone except us.
We're still commander, yeah.
I feel like there's a problem with that.
Yeah. I mean, also, though, Bailey is Bailey. He's still snarky and sarcastic and doesn't seem super excited. And as we'll talk to him more later in the embassies, he will make it clear that it doesn't feel like a promotion sometimes.
It certainly does not. Vega is hanging out somewhere else. And Liara is heading straight to the council.
Yep, when we're to meet her there. But before we go to the council, we can explore this first area with the docking bay and have our first conversation with Diana Allers, a reporter of a different breed for the third game.
I find Diana Allers really interesting. She's a reporter for the Alliance News Network, meaning that she reports specifically on the goings-on of the Alliance. So her main role in this particular war is to keep up morale and to encourage the people back home that not all is lost. And her primary goal is to get herself stationed on the Normandy because that's where all the action is. It is a plum position that any journalist would want, honestly.
Yes. Diana Allers, of course, portrayed by, voiced, and the likeness recreated of the incredible Jessica Chobot, the spouse of the incredible Blair Herter, who are both friends of mine. And it's weird for me. It would be less weird, I suppose, if it was just Jessica doing the voice, because I am friends with a ton of voice actors who I can kind of like forget that they're those characters when they're like fantasy characters or characters that are very different. But because it looks and sounds exactly like Jessica, it'll always be weird to me when it's someone I know personally. But that said, yeah, so you can at this point choose to have Diana join your crew and get on the ship, or decline her and then she doesn't. I'm assuming, like me, you accepted her onto the ship.
Oh yeah, I think it's brilliant to have her on the ship because everyone back home is probably miserable and scared and terrified, and if there's anything that I can do to make that better for people, I'm going to do it. And she also says that we get veto power over what she publishes. So like that's really important because I don't want her publishing something that's like top secret or like we can't let this get out. What if the Reapers intercept your feed or whatever? Like, positivity, great. Anything that the civilians can't really know right now, you can't have that. No, I'm not letting that happen.
Yeah. And so I, of course, did the same and had her come on the ship. And and so you can visit her on the ship, and we'll talk more about that later when we re-familiarize ourselves with the Normandy. But she and her camera join you on the ship, and you can chat with her and choose to or not to discuss things with her that then she will release to the Alliance News Network. What's nice about Diana versus the other reporters we've encountered, specifically a certain one that we're going to talk about later, is that she's very kind. She seems very open and warm, and like she really wants to do what's best for the Alliance. She doesn't want to seem to smear you or anyone else on the ship or the Alliance at all. Yeah. She seems to be a positive cheerleader, for lack of a better term, like someone who wants to improve morale, like you said, and just get everybody psyched up and excited and passionate about what's going on and to fight back and keep fighting.
Right. And I kind of know Jessica through you. Like, obviously, we're not on a first name basis, and I don't think she'd know me on the street, but I know of her through you, and I'm familiar with her because of you. And Diana's a romanceable character. I don't think there is a world in which I would ever feel comfortable romancing someone that I kind of know.
Yep. Oh, no, that's 100% true. She is a romanceable option. I think only is she for both male and female Shep, or just for male Shep?
I think it's just for male Shep, but I'm not 100% certain because I know she gives a flirty little wink to femme Shep as well. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I'm not positive, but that said, yeah, I have like my comfort level is at 0 with that. It's just it's you have the ability to romance your friend's wife. No, thank you. Not on any level. Not in any way. And I'm also a person who is very open and flirty and kind, and like that's just like my demeanor. But like even still, it just feels weird to me. So I've never pursued that path. If you listener have and want to talk about it, that's fine. Like share your experiences. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just not a thing I will ever explore ever.
It's just I've seen so many pictures of their child. I just can't get that out of my head. But I love her as a character. I think she's really great. I'm happy to have her on the ship, so.
Yeah, same.
Let's talk about what's different about the Citadel right from the bat.
Yeah.
When we've explored the Citadel in the past, we've had our squad mates with us. We've had kind of free run of the place, and we could go kind of wherever we wanted. Here, we're by ourselves, which is interesting. We've never really had a place where we could be by ourselves aside from the Normandy. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a hub now. It's more of a safe place, so to speak. And we, as Shepherd, can visit with our friends because they're hanging out in different places in the Citadel.
Yep.
James mentions that he's going to be elsewhere getting into trouble. And Liara, we know, is off talking to the council. But later in the game, you and I know that there's going to be other floors we can access and other people we can chat with.
It's really interesting that they essentially made the Citadel Normandy 2.0 in the third game. Because in the same way that when you hit the Normandy, your crew scatters to their locations, and then you can check in with them. That's what happens on the Citadel as well. Even later in the game, Joker will take some time on the Citadel as well. Not this time, but later times when you visit the Citadel. And it's really interesting. And like we'll have a chance in a little bit to have a conversation with James up in the embassy area. And it's just interesting to see the crewmates interact in a different way in this game because they're scattered about instead of running around behind you. And I ultimately think it was a good idea. I'm bummed that with every game we get to see less and less of the Citadel. Part of the Citadel is locked down now, and we can only visit 2 locations. And then once we come back later, all the other locations will open up. But like in this first game, you could go in so many different places. It felt still small compared to the massive scale of the Citadel, but you could still run around from place to place. Everything was interconnected. There were some elevators, but for the most part, you could get everywhere on foot or taking rapid transit. In the second game, it was a couple of floors that you could visit, and that was really it. And it was after the Geth attack, the Geth attack and the Reaper attack on the Citadel. So, like, I understood stuff being closed down, but, like, now at this point, it's clearly been X amount of time, and the fact that we're still so limited on the Citadel is a bummer. I know why they do it. They want to streamline some of the game, and I get that, but it just is a little bit of a bummer because it does make the Citadel feel the smallest it's ever felt since the first game.
Well, what the Citadel lacks here in expansiveness, it makes up for in immersiveness. Because as we're walking around, there's a lot more conversation happening, just like in a normal place. You overhear conversations all the time. And, for example, when we head up to Huerta Memorial, so we can visit with our Vermeer survivor, there's a lot of conversations you can overhear. Like, I overheard an Asari soldier who's coping with her PTSD and trying to convince one of the other Asari doctors to give her a gun. And for some reason, whatever happened to her triggered because of humans. Mm-hmm. And, like, humans are one of her PTSD triggers. And just seeing a human sends her back to whatever happened to her. And this is the reality of war. And I feel like our presence here in the Citadel is to drive home that there is a war going on. Whether or not the Citadel can feel the war, the people at the Citadel feel the war.
Yeah, for sure. And something we should say at the top also before we go further into the Huerta Memorial stuff is you don't have to go there first. You can go to the council first. But both of us chose to go to visit the survivor first because we're compassionate human beings who want to see
I'd like to
our
make sure
friend.
My friend is okay.
Yes. But yeah, no, I overheard a conversation between a human soldier and a doctor talking about how his healing went wrong. The Metagel didn't take, and they're going to have to take his leg from the knee down. And he's like, but it doesn't even hurt anymore. And they're like, because of the medication. And like this reality of coming to grips with not only being a soldier and being involved in war and the casualties of that, but also active soldiers who want to keep fighting, who can't, and things that are out of their control taking them out of the fight.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. It was very hard to listen to.
Yeah.
One of the opportunities we get here at Huerta is to talk to our space mom, Dr. Chakwas.
Yep. I, of course, made a beeline for her to talk to her. She's talking to Dr. Michelle, but Dr. Michelle will step away as you talk to her. And I'm so excited to see her. And, of course, you catch up on what's been going on. You find out what she's been working on. And then you get the opportunity to ask her to rejoin the ship, which, of course, I did. Because it's Dr. Chakwas. I was never going to say no.
I know. I agree. So when you talk to her, you find out that when everything went down with the Collectors and Shepard turned themselves in, the Alliance didn't know what to do with her because she took a legal leave of absence and she never officially worked for Cerberus, so she didn't do anything wrong. So They were like, would you like to work in one of these medical labs? Would you like that?
Yeah, she does say, though,
She's
that
so
had
great.
you been prosecuted, she probably would have been prosecuted as well as an accomplice. But beyond that, she was safe because there was no trial.
I love her so much. And you do
She's
have
so
the
great.
option of saying, like, your place is on the Normandy, or you can tell her to stay in the labs. I don't know who would ever tell her to stay in the labs because she is your mom and she loves you.
Yeah, I can't imagine either. And my favorite thing is after you tell her that her place is on the Normandy and to rejoin you, she gets really excited. She says she can't wait. And you're like, well, I mean, Joker's still on the ship. And she's like, yeah, and he's probably not even been taking his medicine either. Like, immediately just shifts into mom mode. It's just very cute.
She's so great. But you know what? If you did tell her to stay in the labs, then you get the opportunity to recruit Dr. Michelle.
Really? I never knew that because who would not take Space Mom. But
I know,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
But now on my next playthrough, I think I may, even though, because for those who have been listening for a while or following on the Discord, I am doing a playthrough as my original Shep, my Fem Shep, that is not following in the footsteps of the podcast. And while I didn't do that the first time around on 3, maybe I will this time, because I like Dr. Michelle as a character, and like I never knew that until just now when you told me that you could recruit her, which is pretty awesome.
I have done research into this. You need to have a high paragon or renegade. You need to like be able to convince her. But alas, I will never know. Though I am very proud of her. She would be a good get if it weren't for Space Mom. Like, if Space Mom were not an option, she'd be a great get. She worked her way up from the wards to becoming, I guess, the head doctor or whatever of Huerta Memorial. Like, everybody answers to her specifically.
Yep. And when you talk to her after, so even if you take Dr. Chakwas, you can still talk to Dr. Michelle and catch up with her. And she tells you pretty much, if it weren't for you and Garrus coming and rescuing her, she would not have had the opportunity she had to get to where she is today. And thanks you again for saving her back in the wards. And it's a really cool moment.
The angsty side of my heart wants to do a playthrough where, of course, I romance Garrus and have Dr. Michelle in the medical bay. Because there's that weird flirtation between the two of them that Garrus is completely unaware of.
Yes, I think that would be a lot of fun. I think it'd be fun to do that even without romancing Garrus, just to see if something happens there.
Well, the only way you find out that something... Oh, excuse me, we're going to metagame for a little bit here. Pardon us.
Yeah.
When you romance Garrus in Mass Effect 3, when you pick up Tally and you have Garrus with you, Garrus says, "Oh, I have some dextro chocolate. You can have some if you want." And Tally's like, "Where did you get that?" And he goes, "Dr. Michelle sent it to me." Tally turns to you and says, "You should watch yourself." Because apparently that's a difficult thing to find.
That's really funny. I'd forgotten about that, but that's really great.
So I think that's the only time you ever find out that Dr. Michelle is like, "Notice me, senpai," about Garrus.
That's really funny.
But I like Dr. Michelle, and I think she's really cute.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you're able to have that interaction. And I didn't even know that you could have a different doctor on the ship, like I said. So that's pretty cool to learn, and something I will definitely explore in subsequent playthroughs, as I will probably still continue to play this game endlessly forever until the end of time. That said, let's get down to business about why we're really here. We're here to visit our Vermeer survivor. And let me start by saying, damn, Caden. Damn.
Oh, is Caden shirtless?
Well, but not even that. Like, he's got a chest. Like, and I know that it's the way that the character is propped up, so there's some exaggeration in just the contortion of the character model, but holy man, the dude's got pecs. Like, huge pecs. It's insane. But all of that aside, I do appreciate this touching moment where you go in to visit the Vermeer survivor and they're unconscious. Dr. Michelle says that they are actually doing well, but they don't know when they'll wake up. But they are on the mend and are stable, and are not in critical condition anymore, which is good. And what's interesting from my perspective about talking to the Vermeer survivors, again, I'm reading into the things my shepherd is saying based on my own experiences with Caden in the first game and how I felt about him. But it does feel very impassioned. And again, this is another opportunity where we get to see Shepard vulnerable. I assume even with Ashley, your Shepard was very vulnerable in that moment, talking to them, saying that they have to come back. And you have some options on whether you can be sarcastic or sincere when you're talking to them and kind of just telling them how you feel.
Yeah, I chose to be sincere because honestly, if it's someone that I really care about who's in the hospital, this is not necessarily a time for me to joke. Maybe if she were awake, I'd be a little more sarcastic and like, "So you gotta lay in bed all day?" But she's unconscious, she can't hear me. Perfect time for me to be like, "You can't die. I hope that you know that you can't die because I'm not going to allow it. I will court-martial the hell out of you. Don't do it."
Yeah. It's a really touching moment, and it goes back to what we were saying in our last episode with Kevin, how this game from the start allows you to see a more human side of Shepard, something that was severely lacking in the last two games. And I really appreciate it. It makes me bond and connect to this character even more, especially since in our playthroughs, these characters are an extension of us. I see more of myself in this Shepard because of how warm, open, and sensitive you can be, as I am that kind of person.
Yeah. I hope they get better soon.
Yep.
Before I left, I bought so many books.
Really?
I stopped by the shop, for lack of a better term, the console, to see what they had for sale, and there was an upgrade, so I bought that. But then there was like a bunch of books and some candy and flowers. I was like, yes, please.
See, that's so funny because none of that was an option for me.
That's weird.
Maybe it's because I didn't look at the kiosk on the way out, but on the way in, like, it was just the upgrade and a model for my ship, but that was it.
It was all there for me. Maybe I have some DLC that you don't.
I have all the DLC they make for the game. I bought the complete edition, so I don't know. Strange.
So, after that is heading over to the Citadel embassies. I did everything way out of order. I put this order here because it's what made sense for a normal person to do. It's not what I did.
It's, wait, let me look. It's one off from what I did. I spoke to Bailey first, then I did the council, then I did the Spectre office, then I spoke to James, and then I spoke to Miss Algiani.
I went to Bailey's office, and then I went to the Spectre requisition office, and then I went to speak to the council, and then I hung around and talked to Udina more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spoke to Algiani, and then I spoke to James.
But yeah, so let's follow your more concise, sane person order and discuss it that way. So
that's what a normal person would do.
So the meeting with the council goes about as well as you would expect, and by that I mean terribly. Now with our favorite human counselor up there with them, who is absolutely useless on that stage with them. To be fair, though, it's not actually his fault here, at least. We, of course, are dealing with this. Me and MJ are dealing with the same counselors as we rescued them in the first game. So throughout the 3 games, it's the same ones who still don't have names. It drives me crazy.
They do have names.
Well, okay. In the game, they do not have names because when they speak to you, it doesn't say their name. It says Asari counselor, Turian counselor, Solarian counselor, and that drives me bonkers. I do know they have names because you've told me them the last time I had this complaint, but we're going to get to it. But you have a side conversation with the Turian ambassador afterwards, and it says Turian ambassador and then the words. It doesn't say his name, and it drives me bonkers. But anyway, yeah, we bring them all of the information, and as usual, with all of this incredible information on how to do the right thing and stop the Reapers, they pretty much go, nah, sorry.
I do want to say they raise some really valid points. It's hard for them to side with us off the bat when their own people are suffering. I get it. I'm not saying that it's the best course of action for them, but I understand having to protect your own people.
Yeah, but I get that too. It's just these are the Reapers. This isn't a local military or a group of Batarian, outsiders who want to, or terrorists or anything. It is literally giant machines who are going to kill everyone. And so,
I'm not saying they're right. I'm saying I get it.
But yeah, so you talk to them and they pretty much go in a more long-winded way, because that's the way of this council, talk about how they can't while protecting their own. And of course, the entire way through, Udina is picking fights and trying to get them to waver and or help, which from that perspective, at least Udina is doing the kind of work we need him to do. But unfortunately, it doesn't do anything. And then of course, you even present the weapon that that we found that were the Protheans' weapon that they never finished, that we explained that we might be able to finish, and the Alliance has already started construction, and that we need resources and need help. They also go, nah, sorry, we can't spare that either. But good luck with that weapon that may not even work. And of course, their response is, well, they never used it, so we don't even know if it works. So why try? And it's
Again,
like,
kind of valid.
Not
Not entirely crazy.
But still not the point.
But they do make it clear that if we can help them get their shit under control, then they'll be more likely to help us.
Yeah, and this was Shepard's fear when first talking to James. We discussed this in the end of the first episode, is like, we're going to now have to ride around playing politician. It's not a thing we really wanted to do. And that gets amplified to an even clearer degree after we have a private meeting with Udina, who, of course, is really angry, and I am not shocked, as Udina is selfish and self-centered. But those qualities aren't terrible in this case, as Earth needs help. But
right.
He's clearly quite angry with the council.
Something that fucks me up about Udina is that because the parliament was destroyed, Udina is now the most powerful human.
Yep. And he says that, and he talks about it. He had friends on the parliament, and like, you get a brief moment of like a hint of sadness in his voice as he's talking about it, but then he blows right through on to he is now the most powerful human.
Though to his credit, he doesn't say that with like any arrogance or pride or anything.
Right.
It's just kind
of
like,
matter of fact.
Yeah, like this is how it is, and I'm not super thrilled about it because all of my friends are dead.
Well, and he also says it in a way, he says that it doesn't, like, fat lot of good that it did me, essentially. He's like, I'm the most powerful human alive, and I still couldn't do anything with the council, so it didn't really do me any good.
Right. But we are given a mission, basically, from the Turian counselor, who I think his name is Spiritus.
Be nice if it said that in the game, but sure.
Udina tells you their names. If you talk to Udina, he tells you their names.
Well, nobody told the programmer who is making the subtitles.
Spiritus tells you, hey, if you find our Primarch and bring him to the summit, bypass the council bullshit and go straight to the summit. Go straight to our leaders. And if you do that, we'll probably help you.
And it's just like, great, thanks. This is helpful, but not helpful, so thanks.
Like, it kind of is. I'm not going to lie. I definitely perked up when I heard Palavin. I was like, yes.
Of course, because that's where your boyfriend lives.
I miss him. I miss him so much.
We know. Look, he's my best friend, okay? So I get it.
I love him.
Yeah, we know. So that we get that mission to go to Palavin and find the Primarch and probably find Garrus. That's not much of a spoiler. It's kind of a duh moment. This game isn't as coy with the placement of Garrus as it was in the second game.
Question. When you're done talking to Spiritus, does he tell you, like, oh, we decided to give you back your Spectre status?
Yes, he does.
He tells me we decided to uphold it, and I'm like, fuck you.
Oh, no, yeah, he said uphold for me as well. And it's just like...
Captain Anderson gave it back to me in 2, and you never got that opportunity because Udina was your guy in 2. So that's why I was wondering, like, what the wording was.
Oh, he might have said reinstate. No, I feel like I got my Spectre status back in 2 anyway. I just had to do it differently. I don't remember. I know. Someone who has recently listened to all of our episodes in a tight, short span, correct me and tell me in the comments or on social media, because I don't remember.
It's going to take them a while to get here. I know who you're talking about. It's going to take them a minute.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, and so that pretty much wraps up our dealings with the council this time. Surprise, surprise, they weren't any help, but they sort of were a help. So, business as usual.
Let's talk to Bailey.
So yeah, in this game, you really get to know Bailey. You sort of knew him in the second game, and he was chummy with you. But in this game, you really get to explore his past and talking to him about his promotion. He is very jaded and disinterested in being the gatekeeper to the politicians. And the best part about this conversation is you walk in to him being yelled at by our favorite news person.
I have feelings about Kalisa. We'll get to my feelings about Kalisa. Kalisa's yelling at Bailey, and Shepard, like, shuts the door in her face. when she's
Essentially.
leaving. And I'm just like, well, that was unnecessary, but that's okay. I am most interested in how Bailey got his promotion. Did you explore that conversation path?
I did, but I'm going to let you talk about it.
Okay, so we find out Executor Palin was conspiring against the council. Udina set Bailey onto the case. Bailey proves that Palin was dirty, has to take him out, and is the one to kill him. And then Udina says, "You're getting Palin's job now. This is all you. Congratulations, take the promotion." Which also, there's a really funny exchange between Bailey and Shepard, where Bailey says, "You don't say no to Udina." Well, maybe you do, but I have to live here.
Yeah, and that was great. It's like Bailey clearly knows how things go for Shepard and what Shepard does, and like kind of calls him, her, they on it in that moment, and I love that.
It was my favorite. But going back to Palin, so what if, hear me out, it was all a conspiracy?
How so?
So Udina's the one that put Bailey onto Palin.
Right.
Udina's the one who puts Bailey in charge after Bailey has to be the one to take him out.
So you think that Udina set it up from the start and set him up?
Yes.
It could be. That's a great theory.
I don't trust anyone.
We know that. And especially you don't trust Udina. We know that too.
I hate him.
I mean, he's a terrible man.
So
But
that's my
neither here nor
conspiracy
there.
theory.
I
I think Udina set it up.
I mean, considering things that happen with Udina later in the game, it doesn't seem outside of his wheelhouse. So I guess we'll explore it more. Keep that theory in the back of your skull, and we'll re-explore it as we get to those points in the game.
Okay, fine. How sad were you when you found out that Bailey has 2 kids and he doesn't know anything about what happened to them?
It's really a bummer, and like it's hard to tell based on the conversation, but it seems like his ex-wife like was not a good partner, and like a lot of the reason why he doesn't know what's going on with them is because of her, which is just a bummer.
I think it's also he doesn't have a great relationship with his kids, because if we remember how things went down with Thane and his son, Kolyat,
Yeah.
Bailey was very like, children.
Yeah, for sure. And
Like,
it's clear that
oh.
there's a disconnect, although Bailey doesn't give you all the information as to like exactly why, but it is clear that there's fracturing in his family, and that's why he's divorced, and that's why he's not in contact with his kids.
Anyway, I'm sad about Bailey now. I used to like not love Bailey because of all the like corruption in CSEC, but now I'm sad about him.
Well, yeah, because he's moved beyond that position, and so now we just get to interact with Bailey as Bailey, and he seems like a stand-up guy who just kind of wants to do the best he can in the position he's in.
He'd rather be working in the streets. He hates being like the political guy. My favorite quote from that conversation is, "Politicians are the weeds of the galaxy. If you put that on a bumper sticker, I'll put it here on my desk."
And I also appreciate that he's like, I hate the job, but the paycheck's not bad, which is a mood. Like, we've all taken a job that pays better just because we want the money or need the money. So I get that, and I feel that.
I'll never know what that's like.
Look, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Okay, let's move on to the Spectre office. Not a lot to do here. We're just going to talk about it.
Yep. So you can go into the Spectre office. It's where your requisitions are for weapons that are way too expensive. It's also, there's a shooting gallery that you can do training in. And there's a news monitor just spouting news at you like there is in a bunch of other rooms.
And actionable intel. Nothing actionable right this second, but
yeah,
there's going to be stuff that we could be like, oh, hey, let's do something about that.
Yep.
So that's important. It's a good reason to visit the office. I checked out the shooting range because I felt like I'd never used it before. There's 3 targets. One is armor, one is just health, and one is shields. And you can set them at different distances, test out different guns. There's ammo there so you can reload. It's very interesting, boring for me, though. I shot a little bit and I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I didn't even bother. I feel like I've used it before, but it's literally a way to refresh your memory. Actually, this is relevant to an episode of Fun and Games that I just recently recorded, but that won't air till way after this. Because we're backlogged and banked on episodes, but we were talking about how games don't always allow opportunities for you to refresh yourself if you've been away from them for a long time. Like there's no built-in tutorials that say, hey, you haven't played in a year. Here are the controls, idiot, since you probably don't remember them. This training room is essentially that. It gives you a place to at least refresh yourself on combat without having to take any risks. And I think that's a good feature to have because most people won't use it. But like if I play Mass Effect 3 on my own and stop for 6 months and then go back to it, although I'm intimately familiar with the game, I can then go refresh myself on the combat without having to waste time in an actual battle where I could die doing that.
So that's really it for the Spectre office. Next up, let's talk about Kalisa Al-Jalani.
Our favorite reporter.
Okay, look. She starts off really aggressive and in your face. I decided not to take the Renegade trigger.
Same.
And I took the Paragon trigger.
Same.
Which allowed us the opportunity to say, hey, Kalisa, I know you're scared. It's going to be okay. And that's really what she needed. She needed somebody to be compassionate and empathetic with her because she's terrified. Of course it's scary. People that she knew on Earth are dead or maybe dead, and she doesn't know, and nobody's telling anyone anything. And being a member of the free press, it's scary to not have answers. And when people shut you down and stonewall you, when it's your job to find out information and you can't get anything, it's frustrating, and I understand. And I think Kalisa gets a lot of, aggression, and she gets a lot of negativity. Really, she's just trying to do her job.
Sure. I think the problem with her, from a character perspective, is that you don't get any opportunities to see that side of her up until this moment. But you do take that moment, and we both did, the Paragon trigger, which allows you to kind of, put your hands on her shoulder and, say, it's going to be okay. She does come around, and it's funny to think that, and it's hard to think this way sometimes, especially as a defensive person myself. If someone comes at you aggressively, my instinct is to close off and to separate or even throw them away. And it's you can't always do that. Some people you should do that with, depending on how toxic they are. But, sometimes people just need you to communicate and need outreach. And this shows that kind of learning moment where Shepard sees beyond her brash exterior and sees her pain. And he was able to reach out and be like, hey, I see you. It's going to be okay. I'm fighting to make sure that shit will get better, but you have to let me do it. And it's really touching.
Believe it or not, this is actually a really important aspect of customer service. It's being able to see through the customer's anger, aggression, frustration to the heart of what the actual problem is. And just be a caring person to them, and that's usually all they need. I had a customer over the weekend who was upset about something, and she had every right to be upset about. And, I solved the problem for her, and I let her know. I was like, hey, I understand why this was frustrating, and you're absolutely right. It was messed up, and you deserve better. But it's fixed now, and I hope that, you're happy, and I promise you we're going to take care of your pet. And she was just so relieved, and she was so happy. And when she dropped off her dog, everything was fine.
Yeah, no, it's an important part of customer service to, and that said, of course, there will be people that even if you treat them fairly and treat them well, they will treat you like dog shit. Those people exist. And there's not much that you can do about those people.
Before we address James brooding, staring at the window.
Mm-hmm.
My science fiction prince. I do love him dearly. I want to address this conversation that you overhear at the help desk.
Oh my god, yes, please do.
This older lady approaches the help desk to speak to an Asari woman, and she wants help trying to get in touch with her son. And the woman is just like, oh, we talked about this already. Don't you remember? And when you're listening to it, the impression you get is that the son is dead. That his team, went down and, there's no hope for this guy to have survived. but the woman, I think, has Alzheimer's. And she has forgotten that conversation, and she's just back to like, no, he wouldn't go this long without contacting me. It's been like a month, and I'd really like to get through this contact request form. And when the Asari was like, yeah, I mean, I've already checked into it for you, the woman's like, oh, I can't believe you already did that. You're so sweet. You remind me of my daughter-in-law. And this poor Asari woman is just like, if I find anything out, I'll let you know. Because she doesn't have it in her to tell her, like, your son is probably dead.
Sure, of course.
And I just wanted to hug both of them. I'm like, oh God, this is terrible. I hate everything. Neither of you deserve this.
Sure, and I have to assume, because it's connected to military service, that you can't just release information. That has to go through the proper channels and all of that. And so, yeah, it's a bummer being in that kind of a loop, speaking to customer service. Like, that Asari can only do so much, and this woman who seems to be suffering from Alzheimer's literally can't remember. So, like, it's a loop that can't be broken, and it's just a bummer.
I just hope that they get help. It broke my heart to listen to it. And I wish that there was something that Shepard could do about it.
Yeah.
But you can't fix every problem in the galaxy.
Correct.
Then we get the opportunity to talk to James, who is kind of jaded.
Yeah, he talks about, and this is something that comes up in other games also, but he said, no one here knows that there's a war going on. You can't tell by looking out the window. Everyone's so removed from it.
Yeah.
It's on the news, but barely. And he's just kind of, he's clearly bummed out by it. Because there are tons of humans on the Citadel, and if they knew what was happening or had a close-up experience, they would probably be singing a different tune, but they're not, because they're not there. And this area, the embassies, is where the elite, as Shepard puts it, are like the richest people, the politicians, the political figures. And so these are the people furthest removed from the day-to-day and the soldier life, which is what all James knows. And so it's just a whole different perspective and sight to what he's used to.
Honestly, his perspective is very reminiscent to at the start of quarantine and the pandemic, when things were just really starting to come to light here in the US. It wasn't as if it all happened at once. It was happening so slowly, but because many of us were not in areas where cases were being reported, or at least they were not making the news, there was no pandemic where we were.
Yeah.
And then finally, everything just seemed to hit at once. And I think that's what's going to happen to the Citadel, is you hear it on the news, but it's so far away from you. It's not affecting you here where you are until suddenly it does.
Yep. And I mean, there's also blissful ignorance to a degree also. Like, the politicians know it's happening already. They're involved in that information. But if you have a lot of money and comforts and you're not on the war-torn planet, it's very easy to remove yourself from it. And, we see that even with the quarantine as well. Our experience with folks, idiots not wearing masks now and infecting other people and spreading this thing, and people dying from it because of this kind of ignorance. And those kinds of people are hard to speak to, because if they're willfully just not doing what they should be to help everyone else out, or in this case for the Citadel, like, be involved or get help, it's like that, then there's nothing you can do. That's a wall you can't break down, because there's no communication that will go past willful ignorance, if you're deciding to ignore what's happening. And it's a bummer, because there's a little bit of that with the council, right? Like, they know it's bad on Earth, they can see it, and they know that's going to be them soon. And instead of helping, they want to guard more. And there's a logic to it, but it's also a little bit of willful ignorance of, yeah, I'm not going to help them. I need to, I know that's the smart thing to do, but I'm just going to protect my people, because it'll be us soon.
Right. James decides that he's not going to rush back to Earth. He's going to stay on the Normandy with Shepard, because that's where they're going to do the most good. So that's good.
Yeah, he seems to be coming around on Shepard and on the experience and what's happening. But he acts in a way that a lot of folks would act normally to something like this, like rage-filled, wanting to go where the problem is and solve it. And that's not always the smartest choice, but it's hard to see that. But he's had some time from it now, as some time has passed, and he understands, oh, I guess I should stay with Shepard. I think that's where I'll be the most effective, which is smart, and it's a good thing that he was able to see that.
Do we know how old James is?
Oh, I don't.
I'm gonna find out. Let's see, 2186. Joins at 2176, so he's been in the service for 10 years.
I find it hard to believe that the Mass Effect wiki doesn't have his age.
It doesn't.
Maybe we don't know. I mean, it's possible.
Because I was going to say his behavior and his attitude makes sense. Oh, 2158. James Vega is 28. So, still kind of young, but not really. I mean, you and I are in our 30s.
Yeah. I mean, life experience ages you faster than the actual number, depending. So, like, no matter how young he is, he's going to seem a little older because he's been to war and back, and he's seen his squad die, which we'll find out a little later, and things like that. So, he will always seem more worn than anyone else his age, probably, because of what he's seen and what he's been through.
Yeah. And after that, there's not much else to do, so it's time to return to the Normandy.
Yep. So we head back to the Normandy, and when we go back, we go directly to sleep, we assume, because it cuts from entering the Normandy to a weird-ass dream.
I don't know how I feel about the dream sequences. So, this particular dream sequence is Shepard moving in slow motion through a barren wood, chasing after the image of the little boy that we had seen in the vent during the tutorial. We saw them climb onto a shuttle, and we saw that shuttle get blown up. So now this little boy is haunting our dreams. And the dream itself is Shepard trying to find this boy and chase after him. And then when we finally do, he just becomes engulfed in flames.
Yep.
And there's a lot of different meanings you can derive from that. I think the first that comes to mind for me is that no matter how hard you try, humanity is still going to burn.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people have tried to dissect what these mean and what the child actually represents. There's also a Reaper horn that we hear the first time you catch up to the child before it resets and you have to keep running. Shepard moving in slow motion is reflective of a thing that happens in a lot of dreams where, you're trying to do something and you can't do it. And that's part of the nightmare, is the inability to do whatever it is. There are theories that this is proof of Shepard slowly being indoctrinated.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
And fighting against the indoctrination, although... so this is something that's going to come up during the podcast. We have only barely mentioned it so far, but there was a theory that came out and became popular shortly after Mass Effect 3 came out called the indoctrination theory, and that it tried to explain the endings as Shepard throughout the game fighting against indoctrination because Shepard had been around the Reapers so much. BioWare has officially said that is not correct, that's not what, as of the story they wrote, that's not true. Now, that doesn't really matter because, again, like an author of a book, you are allowed to interpret those works how you feel.
Yeah. Once you release it, it's ours.
Right. But that said, it is an unofficial theory. Shepard is not being indoctrinated in the game, according to the developers. But that is one of the interpretations of the dream, is that at night, Shepard is moving slowly towards this child who represents this kind of control that he can't get back, or she can't get back, and that they're slowly becoming indoctrinated just over time from their experience and exposure to everything related to the Reapers.
I kind of like my dream interpretation.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a manifestation of Shepard's fear that no matter what they do, how much they chase down leads and everything, humanity is just not going to survive. Yeah.
It is a good interpretation, I think. The dreams are vague enough that you can see whatever you want to see in them. And we'll talk about the indoctrination theory and some other stuff more as we experience more of these dreams, because there will be more throughout the game and even as we get to the ending. But yeah, and then once the child is burning and Shepard starts to look horrified, you wake up with a start. A sound that is very familiar to me, as I am someone who suffers from chronic nightmares, and so like I often wake up that way in the middle of the night. So like my heart jumped a little when Shepard does that, because that is a familiar experience to me. Once you wake up, you can walk around your bedroom, and then as you're getting ready to leave, Liara is there. Ta-da!
Yeah, awkward for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
'Cause I'm just like, oh god.
What did I do now?
It wasn't mean to her, but it wasn't necessarily like nice and vulnerable with her either.
Me neither, mostly because I leaned into how I would feel if I were Shepard in that moment, that if I woke up with a start like that and then someone was outside my door, I'd be a little disheveled. And Liara recognizes that you're not sleeping, and you can tell her that you haven't been and talk. But Shepard doesn't really open up that much about it no matter what option you choose. Like, you talk a little, but you're pretty closed off.
I told her I was just shrugging off sleep. Let's move on.
And while you're talking with Liara, the person in charge of your retrofit comes to actually show you your new ship, and as
my
a tutorial,
favorite useless lesbian.
And as well, she also is there to as a tutorial device to show you how to use the ship and where to go to do your various functions.
God, I love her. Samantha Trainer, the Normandy's very own useless lesbian. She was part of the team to retrofit the Normandy, and then when we took off, she just kind of had to go with us.
Yep.
She talks about how, like, I'm here if you want me here. If you don't want me here, I totally get it. And Edie breaks in the conversation and be like, hi, she was very useful. I would like to keep her, please.
Yes. And then also comments on how a virtual intelligence would like even know to say that. And that's when you explain that she's actually an AI.
She's so mad.
And she's so mad. She's like, Joker lied to me. I knew it. But they were just trying to protect her. And then she says, well, then I have an apology, Edie. I'm sorry for saying that you had a very attractive voice, which is really funny.
It's so great. This is why I'm saying that she's a useless lesbian. She's so good. She's so funny. Some new stuff going on is now we have a war room.
Yep. This is where you can look at your war assets, which will become important as time goes on, people to aid in the building of the device and to help support Earth.
We also have the armory down in the shuttle bay now where it belongs instead of next to the CIC. And Liara posted up in the old XO office. That's hers now.
Yep.
And then Hackett wants to have a conversation with us. Can I get a minute to breathe, please? His pointing is very aggressive.
It is very aggressive.
Like, that's a great idea! Like, okay, calm down. You tell him about your conversation with the council and how, like, they're basically useless. However, they tell you, hey, if you help us, we'll help you. Haha. And your mission to go to Palavin, and Hackett's just like, yes, do it. All the pointing. Let me punctuate every word.
Yeah, it's Admiral Hackett doesn't seem too surprised by the results. I think he anticipated the same thing we anticipated about the council. But he lets you know that you should be sending any war assets his way, and that kind of opens up this game's versions of the mining, which is to scan environments to find things that you can use to support the war effort and send back home.
Oh yeah, can't wait to do some scanning.
Now, at this point, did you go explore the ship, or did you go straight to the next mission?
I went to explore the ship.
Okay, so did I. Good. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. I went and explored the ship, including this very weird room in between what used to be Morden's lab and the CIC, where there are just two soldiers on either side of a body scanner. And I'm just like, why is this here?
I mean, clearly we're going to be bringing people on the ship, but until that happens, it does seem a little odd. Although we are informed that this was originally going to be Admiral Anderson. I remembered
Good
Admiral
job.
Anderson's
So proud of you.
mobile
command center. Yes. It weirds me out. I'm just like, why are you guys here? Do you guys want a break? You want to go down to the mess hall?
They're always there.
Go get some lunch. I chatted with Joker. He didn't have a whole lot to say, but he was very supportive of me.
Yeah, I do like how he's like, oh, I'm so shocked that we went to the Citadel and the council you gave them all this information and then they continued to do absolutely nothing and not help.
I thought they were hopefully working on something in secret because, Cerberus.
Yeah.
I do love his little dig, like, let me know if you want to get them on the phone and hang up on them, just like old times.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. Although I never hung up on them, I don't think, in my playthrough. I don't think
I did either.
I think he just says it, which is fine. It's still funny.
Supportive. I chatted with my favorite lesbian.
I did too. Got some updates about how she wasn't expecting to. This conversation is great. How she wasn't expecting to be on the ship, so she didn't have any supplies, clothes, toothbrush, or anything. And how so she ordered a bunch of stuff. And you're like, oh, well, I mean, we have a budget. I'll get you what you need. And then she tells you about her 6,000 credit toothbrush, and you're like, no, that's on you. Never mind.
No. It uses tiny Mass Effect fields.
To brush your teeth. That's terrifying.
That's amazing. I love it. And how are you such a giant ass nerd that you're spending 6,000 credits on your toothbrush? I love her. She's so awkward and goofy. Ugh.
Are you falling for her already?
In the way where I'm like, yes, another gay person. Let's be friends.
Right. Yeah. No, I know.
I don't think I want to romance her, but I do want to be her bestie.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
She's so great. She was also a colony kid.
Yep.
She mentions to me, oh, and I think you were too. Didn't you grow up on Minwar? And I didn't really have the opportunity to be like, yeah, I was possibly tortured by some Batarians on Minwar. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Everyone I grew up with died. It's fine.
I mean, that's not an opener conversation kind of topic, I don't think.
If you've met a queer person, which you have.
That's true. Yeah,
which you are. And
yes.
You're married to.
Yes. Your point made. Point made.
We open with our traumas.
Brings us closer together.
It does. That's first date material. But yeah, I love her. She's not Kelly 2.0. This is also why I love her. She's not just the bubbly personality who checks your messages for you. She's an actual person. She's her own woman. And she doesn't check your messages for you. She's like, oh, hey, just so you know, there's a mission that you could do over here if you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, that said, I do miss Kelly. I loved Kelly.
Kelly is great. This wasn't supposed to be a disparaging remark about Kelly. It's meant to highlight that trainers.
This is a different character. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, the bathrooms still suck.
Yes, we're not getting into that.
Why not? The bathrooms are bad, and they should feel bad. Derek Van Dyke agrees with me.
He does, and he will be a guest later this season, so you both can yell about the bathrooms then.
Oh, we will. Mark my words, Stormageddon. We will.
I believe you.
I checked in with Mom.
I did too. We chatted a little bit, caught up some more.
She made me do a checkup.
Yep. And then this is the game, on a meta level, this is the game reminding you that if you're a renegade, your renegade scars will come back for no reason other than Dr. Mom just mentioned. That if you're an asshole, you're synthetic, your upgrades won't take somehow. Because magic. I don't know.
She is such a mom because when she's like, oh, hey, I'm glad I caught you. Checkup time. And I'm just like, have I ever told you that I hate doctors? She just goes, don't be such a grouch. Well, okay, you're rude, but fine.
Fine. You can also, after your checkup, go visit the lifeless robot body in the back room, which is creepy.
Yes, it is creepy. I did have a little further conversation with Mom where I asked her, like, hey, do you regret what we did by working for Cerberus? And I love her because she reinforces something that we've been saying the entire time. It's like, no, sweetie, we did not work for them. We used them. We took their best people and turned them against them. We used all of their resources and their money. And then we told them to go fuck themselves. So...
Space Mom is the best mom.
I don't feel bad about shit. And something kind of cringy, but also kind of sweet, she says is, the Alliance is my spouse, and you are all my children.
Ugh.
The Alliance should not be your spouse.
No.
But
get an actual spouse if you want one. If
you
don't,
are my
that's
mom.
Fine. Yeah, that's true. She's great. And then from Dr. Chakwas, I went to where I know a certain someone will be living by the calibration area. And there's already a sniper rifle there, which I think is very funny and meta, even though a certain someone isn't there yet. There's just a random sniper rifle.
Just because I was looking for my missing ships.
Yep, because they're scattered all over the ship, and we'll get to that in a minute.
You fuckers took my ships.
And then put them back in the box and put them elsewhere. Why?
Just give them back.
When we go down to engineering, I have my favorite story of all of the stuff you go to find. But from here, then, of course, you can go across the way to the old XO office, and that is where Liara is. And you are immediately greeted by the AI that now has a name, and his name is Glyph.
I love him so much.
He's so polite.
He's so cute. He's just this little blue orb who floats around, and he's so polite. And I'm just like, why are you so cute? You're just an orb. Is it because you have a name now that I love you?
And he updates you on one of the last stations on the ship to train you on, which is an area where you can find certain research, like in the last game. But in this game, when you do the research, it just translates to automatic upgrades.
Yeah.
For you, your crew, your weapons, that kind of stuff. And so he gives you the run through of that, and then you can talk to Liara after that. And my favorite thing about Liara and her conversation with her is that you can ask about Glyph, and she says, yes, I was able to reprogram him, but due to his over-optimization, he once tried to optimize Edie, and that didn't go so well, which is...
I didn't get that conversation.
Yeah, if you ask about Glyph, and he's like, I was just trying to make her routine or whatever more... blah, blah, blah. And Liara just turns around to him and goes, and that's why you're confined to my quarters. It's really cute.
I didn't get that conversation. I think because when I approached her to talk, the conversation was Liara being like, hey, so are we going to pick up where we left off? And me being like, no.
Yeah, none of that for me.
No, thank you. And I ended things in game 2. Do you not remember this conversation we had where I was like, hey, I have really deep feelings for Garrus? And you were like, okay, I get it. Do you not remember?
Yeah, apparently not. Amnesia, maybe.
So I had to be like, yeah, I think we should just be friends. I don't think we work anymore. And Liara was like, really? Okay. She took it really well, but she seems surprised.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you took it well. Yeah, if you do the more details parts of the conversation, you'll get that conversation I had with Glyph, as well as some updates about, she talks about how she wouldn't be very much of a shadow broker if she'd move all her stuff onto the ship. And she still doesn't have everything.
God, these screens fucking terrify me. They follow you.
They do follow you. It reminds
why are you
me
following me?
It reminds me of the scene in The Dark Knight where Lucius Fox helps Batman build that crazy cell phone device that can, with all the monitors where it can scan the city. And it's just this is too much power for one person. What are you doing?
So much. I did find out that the elusive man tracked her down back to Haglaz, so she had to blow up her entire ship.
Yeah, that was new, and
it's
probably
amazing.
Just a meta reason for you to never go back to the ship again.
Yeah. That's really all I have for notes about that. I think I
Same.
kind of just wanted to like, hey, okay, this was a great conversation in which I broke out with you. All right, bye.
Yeah. After that, I went to engineering and
Mm-hmm.
did one of my favorite activities. Before we get to Adams, who's back on the ship, our engineer from the first game. But before that, I went down into the lower decks where Jack was, just because, reminiscing.
You wanted
about
to
my favorite-
reminisce.
I did, my favorite spot. And I also, like, 4 ships were hidden in underneath the staircase there, model ships. So I had to grab those. And then as I'm walking away, I hear a little beep.
Your
And
hamster is fucking loose.
It's just loose running around the lower decks.
How did you idiots set my hamster loose? How do you not take care of my hamster? He had his own little terrarium. All you had to do was keep him in there and feed him. What is wrong with you?
So you, of course, can catch your hamster, which I did, and then
took
you
me
put
a
him
while.
back in your room. Oh, it took me 2. I had to I kept being able to see him, but not
He's
lock
so
on him.
fast.
And every time he runs by, it just goes beep. It's the best.
I'd be like
So
chasing
cute.
him around trying to like maneuver the camera so that I could be highlighting
Yep.
him so I could catch
Same.
him. I'm just like, oh my god.
It was very funny.
You should not
And
be
silly.
loose.
You should not be loose.
My precious little baby.
But yeah, so we get our space hamster and our model ships back, and then we go upstairs, and Engineer Adams is on the ship. And we haven't seen him since the first game, and you get to have a conversation where you catch up with him. And this is actually a really cool moment.
Yes, I stan Engineer Adams. He is a very good person.
Yes.
He apologizes to you, which I feel like is unnecessary. He doesn't need to apologize to you because it's not like he told you to go fuck yourself. He was
Right.
asked to join you, and he said, I can't do that. I can't abandon my post, which is totally fair, my dude. You're not obligated to do that.
Yeah, no, it made total sense, and I also told him the same thing. I was like, you did nothing wrong. You're fine.
And he says that like he couldn't abandon his post. And when you use the Paragon response, which I don't remember what the option was, but it makes you say your alliance first, as it should be. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you had every right to refuse, and you should not feel bad about it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I don't love that response either, because I don't feel like my shepherd feels that way, honestly.
I certainly do not.
Yeah. But he's really excited to be back on the ship, and it's just a really cool moment that you get to share with an old, because a lot of the crew from that first Normandy didn't survive the crash.
Yeah. A couple of funny things is that if you push the Normandy too hard, the engine will vent into the engine room and kill everyone.
Really?
Yes, he tells you that. He's like, yeah, so like this is way too powerful, and if you guys push it too hard and like we're not doing our jobs correctly to keep everything balanced, it will vent into here and kill us.
Yikes.
And Shepard's just like, oh, so do your job or get vaporized.
Shepherd. Rude.
But correct.
Yes, it is accurate.
And during this conversation is when I noticed that there's this kind of like weird camera focus issue during conversations. Like faces get fuzzy out of nowhere, and I'm like, are you having a problem?
Yeah.
What is happening? Also, we find out that Adam saw right through Edie and tried to dismantle her several times, and Edie was just like, no.
It's pretty funny.
I love it. I love Adams. I think he's amazing. He's really sweet and good-natured. Like, we loved him in Mass Effect 1. I'm so happy he's back.
Me too. Yeah.
Let's see.
And then all that's left is the lower decks.
Allers.
Oh, Allers, right. We can go visit Allers. And just she shows you that she's all set up and gives you the rundown on how things will work. And that's about it.
She has a conspiracy theory wall.
Yes, because of course she does.
I love it. So great. She's very happy about our communicator that reaches Earth. She says something like, remind me to tell you about the time I made an Elcor cry. And I just want to be like, don't think it's hard to make an Elcor cry. Just because they're monotone does not mean that they're not emotional.
Yep, that's true.
They communicate their emotions to you, which I believe is just polite.
Right. But she might be saying that she made an Elcor openly sob, which would be an accomplishment.
Not so sure, but whatever. Anyway, I'm happy that she's there.
Yes.
Regardless. Then we can go down to the shuttle bay. I'm curious to know how you felt about Cortez.
So first, before Cortez, we need to talk about the most precious thing in the history of Mass Effect, our cute little robot dog.
I don't have the robot dog!
What?
I don't have the robot dog. I don't know how to get the robot dog.
He was DLC.
He's not available to me.
That sucks. I have an adorable robot dog. When I was getting ready to leave the lower decks, he was sleeping on the floor, all curled up with one leg twitching.
I knew about the robot dog. I'm like, well, I have this dog. Why don't I have access to him? Where is he? And I'm like pouring through the Microsoft store. He was part of the N7 Collector's Edition, which I'm fairly certain I have, but I don't know. Yeah. I tried to access it, and Microsoft was like, no, denied.
Yeah, I bought everything on Origin whole hog as I'm replaying on the PC, and later, way after the Collector's Edition had been out for a while, they re-released all the Collector's Edition stuff as additional DLC that you could pay for, which is how I have it.
They might not have done that for console.
Or they might have done it and you didn't know you needed it, and then now you can't access it because you can't download stuff on the 360.
I don't know. I bought it as... So, story time. When Matt and I were dating, that's how I got into Mass Effect. So all of my exposure to Mass Effect was through Matt's ownership of the games. Matt and I broke up, and then I didn't have access to the games anymore. Fast forward to when I'm dating Brian, and I think that's when I had access to the games again. And then Brian and I broke up, and then I needed to have my own copies of the games. So I went out and I bought the 3-disc, I bought the complete set, which came with all the DLC, but apparently not this one. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm gonna, deal with it another day.
That's fair. I mean, he doesn't do much. He's just adorable.
That's all I need. I don't have a real dog. I have to live vicariously somewhere.
That's fair.
All I have are the dogs that I have to deal with at work, and not all of them are great. Sometimes they kick me in the face.
Back to the task at hand, though.
Cortez.
I like Cortez. I like that while I'm talking to him and
Vega.
Space. I was gonna say Space Freddie Prinze Jr., but yes, Vega. Yes. Him and Vega constantly give each other shit. Like when you're talking to him about being the new shuttle pilot, like he was part of the retrofit, but because he helped retrofit the new Kodiak and a lot of the other transportation, he's also fluent in how to fly them, and so he stayed aboard to be your new shuttle pilot because someone recklessly crashed their last shuttle, and they get into a little fight. And it's
I love
really
their
adorable. Friendship.
Their friendship is so cute and wholesome and good. And Vega keeps calling him Esteban.
Esteban. But no, I like him a lot. And I talked to him a bit. You can ask him about his life on Earth, and he says that he had a partner, but he doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Well, his partner was part of the collector abduction in Ferris Fields.
Right, which we find later, but he doesn't share that with you now.
No, he tells you that now.
Does
he? But he says, I don't want to talk more about it.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
He tells you just that. He's like, yeah, we lived in Ferris Fields, and he was abducted by collectors. I don't really want to talk that much about it.
Yeah. But I like, as you explore the conversation with Cortez, him and Vega fire back and forth at each other.
So cute.
It's pretty funny. And yeah, no, he's a really cool character. He is also, although not flamboyant here, is canonically also a gay character. Mm-hmm. And you can romance him as male shepherd. The conversation didn't go in a flirty direction while I was talking to him, but I think it becomes an option later on. I've never romanced him in the past, but he is a romanceable option for only male shepherd.
Mm-hmm. And Trainer is romanceable for only femme shep.
So growth in small spurts, but still not quite enough. And we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah. And then I talked to Vega.
Yeah, so this is one of the more interactive conversations you get to have on the ship. You're talking to Vega while he's doing pull-ups, and you start to ask him about his past because you want to get to know your crew. And he's like, can you talk and dance? And then next thing you know, you're sparring with Vega while you're talking to him.
I love this conversation because talking to him as FemShep is 100% flirtation all the way, but not in a, like, this is going somewhere flirtation, in a, we're friends who try to one-up each other every time flirtation.
Yep. And it definitely feels that way for Male Shepherd, too. And what's interesting here is as you're sparring, you can take positive or, chastising responses, but you also get an opportunity for I think it's 1 or 2 Paragon triggers and 1 or 2 Renegade triggers. And I, of course, took the Paragon triggers. I didn't take the Renegade triggers.
Oh, I took all the triggers.
Really?
I took all of them.
So you sucker punched him a couple times.
Yeah, I did. Tell me he didn't deserve it.
That's true.
Boy, you sassy. I'm going to sucker punch you because you need to be reminded that, hi, I'm your commander and I can kick your ass.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to tell him that.
I would agree. And so the conversation, you get some backstory that the entire squad that he previously worked with were all killed, trying to protect information about the collectors that it turns out they ended up not needing, but he chose to protect the information instead of his squad because that seemed more vital at the time, even though it turns out it wasn't required. And you can take the opportunity through the Paragon triggers to tell him that's not his fault. He made the right call in that moment. He couldn't have possibly known what Shepard was doing with Cerberus on the other side of the galaxy. He was doing the best he could with the information he had.
Let's not forget to mention that the reason Vega was there in the first place was to get intel on the collectors, and the reason why it wound up not being relevant is because Shepard destroyed the collectors. So to him, it feels like all of those people died for nothing. But as we said, you couldn't have known. You did your best with the information you had, and that doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't put you in fault. You did your best. And therefore, no one can criticize you.
Yes. And I like that when you take the final Paragon trigger, you essentially body slam him onto the ground and then tell him that, that it's not his fault and that, he did what he could. And then for Male Shep, he asks if he can call you Loco. And for Fem Shep, he asks if he can call you Lola. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I decided he can call me Loco. And then after I agreed to it, I went, but that's a dumb nickname. I should have said no. And so, but it's too late. So now I'm Loco. Did you allow him to call you Lola?
Yes. And Shepard goes, you're cute. I'll allow it. And Vega's like, you went and did it. Now I'm blushing. And I'm just like, yes. Friendship. I like that he gives you a nickname because it finally makes Shepard feel like a person.
Yeah, no, totally. I just don't like the nickname Loco. I like that I did get a nickname, though.
Like, it always kind of bothers me in, for example, Dragon Age. Varric gives everyone a nickname.
Yes.
But Hawk is just Hawk.
Yep.
And the Inquisitor is just the Inquisitor. Or your inquisitorialness. Yes. I'm like, hi, a nickname, please?
I'm a person. Treat me like a person.
I'm a fully realized creation.
But yeah, after this conversation with Vega, that's kind of the last thing you can do as far as exploring the crew. You can interact with the shopping screen, essentially, that you get, where you're allowed to shop via your terminal. And you can do your weapon upgrading on the ship as well as before a mission. And I did a little bit of that. The weapons are a little different in this game. We talked about that a little bit last game, but here it goes back to a mod system similar to the first game, but without as many overwhelming options. They streamlined it a bit. I think this is the best version of the mod system. I didn't like when they removed them completely, but I like this version where it's, there, but a little more simplistic, so you can kind of just plug and play.
I agree. I do not like a situation where I have to micromanage every little fucking thing, but this feels like, hey, it's here if you want it. You don't have to, but it's here.
Yep.
I prefer that. Like, if I can go through this game without having to do any of it, awesome. That makes me very happy. But I know other people like it, so it should be there for those people.
For sure. And so, yeah, that's pretty much everything you can do on the Normandy.
I'm still pissed that, like, all of my stuff is missing.
Yeah, that we have to run around the ship finding our space models.
Where is all of my stuff? Why did you do this to me?
Someone thought it was funny. I feel like that's a prank that Joker and Edie would play on you, but that's neither here nor there.
So mad about it.
We were going to discuss the next kind of short mission, and we can discuss it briefly, but I think this ended up running longer than we both anticipated, diving into the details. But MJ and I did do a Cerberus mission. We had to explore Cerberus Lab and get back some Reaper tech that they were experimenting on. What this mission is literally just an excuse to familiarize the single player, that was redundant, with the multiplayer maps. So this lab is one of the multiplayer maps, and the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3 was wave-based combat, which was very popular at the time. Gears of War did it with a horde mode and a bunch of other games where you would pick characters with a bunch of other folks online, different races, different classes, and you would fight waves of enemy and also accomplish some kind of task on the map. And this is one of those maps. And so we go here, Cortez drops you off, you go get the relics, you fight waves of enemies. When they're all dead, you get another relic, and you bring it back to Cortez, and then, of course, something happens, and Cortez has to fly away. So you have to fight more waves of enemies until he comes back, and then he comes back and you leave. There wasn't much to it. It's a combat exercise, essentially.
I literally have nothing to add.
All right.
You covered it very succinctly. I got nothing.
Great.
I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was whatever it was.
It was fine. I like being able to flex my muscles combat-wise because I like the Vanguard combat in the third game better than the other games. But that said, it is repetitive because it's designed to replicate the multiplayer maps in the single-player experience so you can be on those maps and see what it's like. So there are a bunch more missions like this. We'll play them, and we will point them out as we do them.
That's really it. Let's move on to Fandom Corner.
Let's do it.
So let's talk about TikTok.
Uh-huh.
I recently got into it because a bunch of my friends are super, super into it, Matt being one of them. My co-host on Circle of Friendship, Anna, I think, likes TikTok. One of my closest friends, Emily, she produces a lot of content on TikTok. Another one of my friends, Micah, like, she's a power lifter and she does a lot of stuff. Like, I have a large group of friends who are super into it. And I know that I would enjoy it, but it's such a time sink that I was like, ooh, do I want to do this? Answer, yes.
Yes.
So, first thing I do upon getting on TikTok is search the Mass Effect tag.
Yes, and see, for those unfamiliar with TikTok, it is not too dissimilar from Vine and things that came after Vine, where you can do voiceovers, short comedy videos, journal entries, however you want to do it. And predominantly my content is music lip syncing or quote lip syncing from movies, TV, and a bunch of other stuff. And I had done a few Mass Effect things, but not a lot. I had mostly done movies and TV shows and other things. I don't have a ton of followers on there. I have like 70-something followers. It's just something that I've done as like a time waster and something to have fun with, and mostly an excuse for me and my friend Emily to send each other TikTok videos all day long. Which
you mean our friend Emily? Our friend.
Our friend.
That I introduced you to, who
yes.
used to be my roommate.
Yes. But that said,
but we were roommates.
Once MJ joined TikTok, she started sending me and doing Mass Effect TikTok lip syncs, and that we've been duetting, which have been a lot of fun. And so we're producing Mass Effect content on there, but also MJ wanted to share some of the other creators who are also creating Mass Effect content.
So the first TikTok TikToker. Is that the right
Sure.
terminology?
I don't know.
I am an adult. So the first creator that I came across, it's Freckled Cosplay. Freckled, Preckled Cosplay. They do an amazing Shepherd. That's where I got a lot of the Mass Effect voiceovers. I just went through all of their Shepherd videos and pulled the ones that I wanted. They were the first person that I followed on TikTok. They're amazing. I love them. They do a lot of other cosplay, including Naruto and some other anime shit that I know nothing about. I'm sure you guys know everything about it. Follow Freckled Cosplay. Some other cosplayers. Gwen.Eris, rather. I think Gwen.Eris was doing the Miranda cosplay. _Victory, Victorie, also does a FemShep. Frost Forge Cosplay does both Miranda and FemShep. Queen with 3 E's, Max, QUEEENMAX, does a FemShep as well. And of course there's me. Frankie Brad is hella rad, and DJ_Stormageddon for all that good Mass Effect content.
There will probably be only more, not less, of that now that MJ is on TikTok.
I am a monster.
Yes, we know.
Okay, before we wrap up, we have a review. Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it?
You can read it.
Okay,
No one can see you dancing. It's an audio podcast.
I'm dancing for you.
Thanks.
Okay, so, title: Answering My Pressing Mass Effect Questions, from Queen of Winter Fae. We've made it. This podcast tackles the tough questions. Is Caden a soft boy? Why is Liara so uncomfortably young? How do you handle space racists? Will Dan Bull ever respond? I really enjoy the deep dive into what it would be like to personally live in this universe, and I appreciate the perspective time gives us on our favorite shows. And MJ and Matt have a great rapport. I'm only 1 season in and blowing through them. My only pressing question for now: why not more Krogan standing? I volunteer to stand some Krogans for you.
Amazing.
That's an excellent review from one of our new friends. They just joined us on Discord, and they found us through Twitter as well.
Yeah, we became friends on Twitter because we were both making bad puns at Urban Bohemian and Cypher of Tyr, who are streamers who are also on Twitter, and we became friends that way. She started coming to my streams, and then found out about my Mass Effect podcast, and it was all down or uphill from there, depending on your perspective.
Spectre a la Fête
Yes.
is their Twitter. They're super cool. Follow them on Twitter. We enjoy having them in Discord. They brought some friends. So thank you for joining us and being part of our family. We appreciate you.
Yep. If you would like to have your review read on the podcast, please write us one. If you are in a country other than the U.S., feel free to email us that review as well, because sometimes we can't see it. But seriously, a rating or a review really helps us to grow this community, which is already an incredible community. So thank you for that, and thank you for that review. Outro time. Our next episode is Priority Eden Prime from Ashes, where we are going to get a certain party member. And we will be joined by the incredible Josh Silverman. He used to be a part of the podcast Constantly Calibrating, which is now retired, but he's working on new podcast endeavors. He's also working on an episode of Side Quest for me. We met at PAX East. He is a delightful human who I adore quite a bit, and I'm very excited to have him on the show.
If you like what you heard here, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain Point of View Network. Visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on the website, and you can join in the conversation. seriously, our Discord community is the best community. I'm in a lot of communities, and I love those communities too. But like the folks who chat with us, share their stories, share their thoughts, engage. It's a blast. I love talking about these games and video games in general. And our community is nothing but amazing. I adore all of those humans. So feel free to join us in those conversations. Again, you can find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on our website, certainpov.com.
Or you can tweet at one of us and be like, yo, give me the link.
And
we'll
too.
do that.
Yeah, that also works. But be more polite than that.
I mean, with me, you don't have to be. I'll just be like, yes, sir. Here it is, sir. Whatever you'd like. Anyway, we do some other stuff. I work on a podcast called The Circle of Friendship, which is about the Circle of Magic books by Tamara Pierce. We discuss friendship, magic, and, of course, Briar Moss. We are entering the third book of that series called Daj's Book. It's an excellent time to catch up and join us. I also do the Rob Thomas No Not That One Robcast, which you can find at Not That Robcast on Twitter, where we discuss the works of Rob Thomas. No, not that one.
I also do a bunch of different stuff as time allows. I have 2 other podcasts on this very network, Screen Snark and Fun and Games, with previous guest of this show, Jeff Moonen. I also do an interview series called Crash Chords Autographs. I interview artists, photographers, magicians, burlesque performers, podcasters, pretty much anyone who will want to talk to me. And I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/DJ_Stormageddon. I am currently making my way through Dragon Age Inquisition. I've played it before, but never beaten it before, so that has been a lot of fun. And my Sunday streams lately have been chill indie games that I've never gotten around to playing. I am playing on Sundays. It's a good time. It's super relaxing. Feel free to come hang out. Again, that's twitch.tv/DJ_Stormageddon.
All right. We'd like to thank Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of their work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram. We also would like to thank Case Aiken for developing more amazing shirt designs, which you can find through certainpov.com or on Teespring. We'd like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. And lastly, thank you to Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.